I have found when I was first starting out writing that when I started with a theme, like this is a movie about blank, that it kind of became wooden.
How does a writer find the central thematic spark of their screenplay?
The central thematic spark, oh yeah, that's like the magic. That's part of the magic that we were talking about, I think. For me, and this is just my experience, is theme comes like almost last. Like it's not a spark in the sense of like a catalyst for an idea for me. It really is something that comes after I've kind of worked a lot and basically thought, oh, that's the theme. And then no, that's not the theme. And then that's the theme and that's not the theme. And suddenly the theme is the thing for me that comes last. It comes for me as a writer when I have figured out who the characters are, what they want deeply, what their fears are. And as I see them struggling to kind of get what they want. And again, it really happens for me toward the end of the writing process in revision, because I may think I have a theme starting out and that never ends up what it's about. Because as I explore and excavate my characters, it appears. And it does feel like magic, because for me it's about like, oh my God, this movie's really about this. I had no idea that it was about this. And I work with a lot of writers too who think they know what their theme is. And it turns out that what they're writing is not what they started out thinking their movie was about. And it's evolved into something else. And so that those little things that they thought were really important at the beginning of the writing process end up falling away in favor of whatever is now sort of taking hold because of the character development in the story. So for me, it's part of the magic, and I don't really even know what my movie's about when I start anymore. I trust that I will know, and I don't know. I have found when I was first starting out writing that when I started with a theme, like this is a movie about blank, that it kind of became wooden, because I was basically just writing to fulfill some prescriptive kind of tenet or something. I don't know. But when I just trust that I don't need to know my theme, I'll wait for it. It will come to me. Usually it does. Sometimes it doesn't. And I have to have other people read it to tell me, what do you think this is about? Because I just kind of get lost in the weeds. Yeah, Arthur Miller, I love this, the way he worked with theme. He had this little building outside of his house that was like his writing shed. I'm sure it was really beautiful. So calling it a shed is probably wrong. But he would go out there, and he obviously was working on a typewriter, right? Because it was the 50s or whatever. And he would start writing his plays. And he said that in the writing process, he would suddenly realize what the theme was. And it was usually when he was kind of in the middle of writing his play. And then he would type up the theme and put it above the typewriter, and that guided the rest of his writing. So he would find his theme in the middle of the process of writing his plays. And I'm sure there are some people who have a theme at the beginning and are able to kind of write to that. But to me, it's kind of like, it's magical. Like you need to like leave it. You need to let it come to you. Because I think it's not, even though a theme feels intellectual, like this movie is about this, I think theme is actually really like from the heart. It's a heart thing, not like a brain thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, okay, because so much of writing seems like there's these rules and you're connecting the dots to so much. But with this, and I'm sure this is hard for writers to do, you're letting it go and you don't know.
That's right.
That sounds like it's very troublesome for writers.
It's so troublesome. I mean, and obviously I'm not saying like go crazy, just write everything, because it's a balance. Like as a human being, you have a left brain, you have a right brain. Organizer, holistic, intuitive. You need both of them to write a great script, okay? And so, part of it is magical, but part of it is actually figuring out, like creating a map for yourself so that you don't go out into the weeds. Now, I know a lot of people who don't have outlines. That's great. Like if you can do that, if you can figure it out and really let yourself be completely free, which to me is terrifying, I cannot be completely free because I will just shut down. It's too scary. So I make a roadmap for myself. But then if I'm in there and it's like, oh, this isn't working the way I thought it would, and this is boring, like where should this be going? You know, and try to follow those things. So it's a balance of structure and also allowing for creative discovery in the writing process. You know?
So set your sort of time, your date with yourself to sit down, whether it's longhand or at the typewriter.
Yeah.
Have your little rituals, your offerings.
Have your offerings.
And then start writing. Yeah, and then hopefully the thunder outside the window brings what the theme is about. Or like you said, you had other people look at your work and say what they thought the theme was.
Yeah, I mean, when I get really stuck, and basically people come to me when they're stuck, right? Like they've looked at their script and they have taken it as far as they can. And they just need someone from the outside to look at it. We all do, you know? And so I have people who look at my stuff. I have a friend, it's a girls group, and it's writers, it's producers, it's teachers, it's storytellers, and you know, we're friends. It's a social group, but we also share our materials with each other if we need feedback. And it has been so helpful. I just wrote a book, and I just felt like I don't know what to do with this anymore. And I gave it to them, and they were brutal, and they're extremely smart. And I was just like, oh my God, this is gold. And I was able to go back in there, see what I couldn't see, right? Because they're coming. And so I think we all as writers need those people. Like, who's our little circle of, who's our community of fellow writers that we can go to, and I'll read your stuff and you read my stuff. Because yes, writing is a lonely sport, but you can't always be alone. You actually do need people. You know, and that's the great thing about working on a TV show, because you're in a room with lots of people. Now, there are issues that come out of that, right? Like personalities and all that stuff. And I'm sure you've talked to people who are TV writers who have stories to tell about writing rooms. But like the great thing about it is you're in a room with other people. And, you know, I've worked as a story consultant at Pixar. And one of the things I absolutely loved is that, like, I'm in a room with other people and we're working together on this story, which is not normally the way feature writers work, which is, I'm a feature writer. So it was so fun to me for me to be in a room with other people. And so, you know, I want to advise people, like, find your group. Like, who are your people? Who can you share this experience with and give encouragement to and notes to and all that kind of stuff? Because you can only take your project so far alone. You need other people. Yeah.
And so with the Talented Mr. Ripley, what is the theme?
Oh, gosh. The Talented Mr. Ripley is based on a book by Patricia Highsmith. And Patricia Highsmith is one of my favorite writers. She's extremely dark, and it's all about twisted human psychology. And she wrote The Price of Salt, which actually Phyllis Nagy turned into the amazing movie Carol, right? So she wrote about not just super dark things, but other things as well. But The Talented Mr. Ripley, honestly, I don't know what the theme is. It doesn't, I think the thing I love about the movie and the book is that it won't fit into our prescribed little boxes of theme, you know, or meaning, because the main character is this guy who's doing everything a main character should never do. And yet we're riveted by him. And so we're able to kind of see the humanity in the darkness, in the dark psychology. And so I think what I'm attracted to in her is that. And for me, that's the theme. It's like, wow, monsters are human too. And they are just like me in some ways. So that's why I love her stuff. And her writing, you know, it's so unique and so specific that you can try to kind of like box her in to like what we understand as like this kind of movie or this kind of book or this kind of theme, but like she will not be boxed, which is what makes her great.
But she faced a lot of criticism, especially at that time. Right?
Absolutely. And, you know, her politics were terrible. I mean, she really was in many ways not a great human being. But as a writer, like I have to admire how she just did what everyone said, don't do it. Don't do it. And yet, and in doing that, created these really compelling characters that we should by all rights not like and not feel empathy toward. And I think she pulls it off. I'm not talking about Carol, I'm talking about Ripley, which is a completely different character.
Sure.
But yeah, she just breaks the rules, which I love. Yeah.